Here you are, bud.
The driver turned to look at Jeff, who had just jerked awake in the back seat.
Take good care of yourself today?
Jeff snapped awake, trying to grasp at a vague memory of something he'd been dreaming about. What was it? He shook his head, mumbled something to the driver, and stepped out of the car. When he stood, he saw Max's beat-up blue Ford Taurus parked on the street. Then Max himself, waiting with his black backpack on the front porch. It was dark, and a gentle breeze tousled the tall elm which had grown in his grandma's front yard all of his life. The amber glow of the streetlight flickered to the sound of a buzzy drone. As Jeff trudged up the steps to greet Max, he happened to notice another car parked on the other side of the street, a green and white two-tone sedan he'd never seen there before. He shrugged it off and turned to embrace his friend.
We all heard what happened.
There was nothing else for Max to say.
Come on in.
Despite his own words of invitation, Jeff hesitated on the threshold, feeling the weight of what he'd wished he'd said to his grandma, what he could never say again. Turning the knob, he faced the empty house. The TV still blared. That same preacher was still predicting that the rapture would happen any minute. Jeff flipped the light. Everything else lay right where it had been left. The party hat gift wrap, strewn in torn sections. The fraying rug, bunched by the passage of Grandma's walker. And the Spectre box, still lodged under the TV stand. Max looked around, said nothing. Jeff switched off the TV and turned. Without realizing it, he repeated the words that Grandma would always say to new house guests.
Can I get you some coffee?
Maybe in the morning. You need some support tonight, or?
Honestly, I'm just gonna crash. I'll see you at the store.
Yeah, right. I talked to Leroy, and he said that you can take a week off if you need it.
Okay.
He tripped and fell onto the couch, where he remained, turned away from Max.
A week then.
A pause.
There's something else.
Max's hesitant tone prompted Jeff to lift and turn his head. He saw his friend holding his backpack open and pulling out a familiar box.
You left this.
At the sight of the speculum, Jeff's teary heart turned as dry and cold as the Siberian tundra. For 3 months, all throughout the pre-launch buzz, the exhilarating launch campaign, 6 weeks as a bestseller, with no signs of stopping. It had been nearly all he could think about. Now, for almost the whole day, he had completely forgotten its existence. He remembered all at once how he had received the terrible news in the same moment as his exulted opening, and his stomach twisted. He tried his best to wish that he'd never accepted such an eerie gift from such a strange benefactor.
You can leave it on the counter.
Jeff buried his head in a sofa cushion.
Thanks.
Max said nothing. Jeff heard his steps recede on the creaky wood floor, then heard the door open and shut. He waited until the sound of Max's Taurus faded, then stood. Picking up the cheap cardboard Spectre box from under the TV stand, he set it on the white and blue ceramic tile kitchen countertop, adjacent to where Max had left the speculum. He regarded the two boxes side by side, the last gift Grandma had ever given him, and the cursed treasure which he would always associate with the moment of her fatal accident. As he reviewed the events of the day, anger, fear, and grief pulled his heart and guts in different directions. He clenched his fist and pounded the tiled counter until his fist turned purple and raw. A few minutes later, he left, walked to the dumpster around the corner, and tossed in the cheap Spectre, box and all. Returning to the house, he collapsed back onto the sofa and slept in his shoes. Dr. Paul Higginbotham sat in the driver's seat of his two-tone green and white sedan, watching the young man throw the box in the dumpster. After confirming that he knew which box went in, He tapped a quick sequence in the secure messaging app on his U-phone. He still got it. He put the phone away, watched as Falcus looked around quickly before returning to his house, and ran his fingers through his thinning white hair. He had left his doctor disguise back at the hospital, since it was of no more use. It had been a long shot anyway, with the poor youth's shock of recent grief, but he had to try. He waited a few minutes longer to give Jeffrey Falcus time to settle into his grandmother's house, then started the ignition. Upon reflection, his failure at the hospital would prove no real obstacle. He knew another way to reach his target. He had just confirmed it.